Jerusalem, a beautiful city, known for its holy sites, its spirituality, and its significance to the three monotheistic religions. A unified capital for some, and a stark reality of occupation and apartheid for others. Today, we sit with Lana Aqilan, someone too familiar with being the odd one out, too American for her Palestinian family, and too Palestinian anywhere else. But it's when she came back to Jerusalem at the age of 8, where all elements of her identity came together to make her the activist she is today. I'm your host, Amira.
And I'm your host, Ibrahim.
And this is UTTN, the podcast. Ahla sahla everybody, and welcome if you're new to our podcast. Today we're sitting with Lana Aqilan. Marhaba Lana, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're really excited to start off with you as a guest. And we're gonna just jump straight into it. Our first segment for this entire season is about who you are. So basically how this segment works is that I'm going to ask you 3 times, who is Lana? And you are going to answer with one word.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start and then we'll dive in after. So who is Lana?
Well, first and foremost, and most importantly, I'm a Palestinian.
Who is Lana?
I'm a feminist.
Who is Lana?
And I'm an activist.
Okay. So is there any particular... I know that we talked about this, Ibrahim, you and I, that we know it's really difficult to choose only 3 things. You're so much more than those 3 things that you chose. And we were talking about the words that we chose.
Exactly.
How difficult it was for us to choose.
And it was kind of a point to choose specific words because you want to highlight something specific.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that other things that you didn't mention are not part of who you are. It's just that right now I'm focusing on specific things that have to do with who I am. And this is, I think, sometimes audience who hear 3 words might look at the person, wait, he didn't say this word, so this is not part of who he is. No, guys, it's not like that. Everything is becoming so populist. It's not the concept. It's 3 things about us that we want to share with our audience. And with you, we have 3 words that we want to pick and discuss.
Yeah. No, for sure. These 3 words all connect with one another. And, you know, I'm very excited for all those misogynistic men to be like, oh, another feminist.
I'm really interested to know why you chose that word. So you did Palestinian, feminist, and activist. Is there a reason for the sequence or is it random?
Well, first, I feel like there's no specific reason as to why I chose these 3 specific words. If I wanted to go on and choose 1,000 words to describe my personality, trust me, I can. There can be a whole encyclopedia for it, and I'm fine with that. But I think these are the strongest 3 characteristics that make up who I am. And, you know, they all connect and they all create this one big story of who I am and why I am the way I am today. So
let's unpack the 3 words that you've decided that you chose. Let's start with the first one, Palestinian. Maybe I'll ask, what is it to be a Palestinian to you?
Keep in mind that the focus of this season is like predominantly we're going to highlight Palestinian activism and women. So, and you chose 2 of those. So give us something, I guess, that you think is not going to be said.
Specific to you. That's why I asked, what is it to be a Palestinian for yourself?
I always say that being a Palestinian is both a blessing and a curse.
Sounds familiar, Amira.
Mm-hmm.
We said it a few times in the past.
I actually wrote a poem about it one time, and it basically said that, you know, I love my Palestinian roots, the culture, the language, the tradition, the food. It's unique, you know, and it stands out. The colors, our clothing, everything. And at the same time, what makes it a curse is that it's a threat. It's a threat to the other side, you know. It's a threat to the West, to Israelis, to be a Palestinian. And it's difficult. It feels like you're suffocating, like you can't breathe, you can't express, you can't do anything without feeling like whether you want to take it metaphorically or literally at gunpoint, you know? And, but I take so much pride in it. And what's funny enough is that I didn't feel Palestinian when I first got here. I was always, you know, the American who is always going to be left out. She didn't really feel like she belonged. Obviously my accent isn't Arabic enough, or I don't look Arabic enough because I'm apparently.
Let's pause for 1 second just for our audience to understand what's the American part about it, because we mentioned it at the beginning. So where did you grow up, and why coming here you had that question about identity?
So to break it down, I was born and raised in Louisiana, Baton Rouge. I lived there for about 8 years, and you know, I love every time I say that they go like, "Really, Louisiana out of all places?" And I'm like, "Sir, ma'am, I don't choose, you know. I was in my mom's stomach at the time. I really couldn't make a decision. Sorry, I'm not from LA."
Why did your parents choose Louisiana?
So my mom's sister at the time was already living there, and my parents wanted a new start. And
It's always like that, because my parents also wanted to go to the UK,
yeah,
and because my mom's brother already decided, so they go wherever the first person landed, I guess.
exactly. And that's literally what my parents decided. They were like, Louisiana. And ironically enough, we owned a restaurant, and it wasn't Mediterranean. It was Mexican. And so you can just like imagine the identity crisis I had going on. I was like, what's, you know, all this different culture
They
and
teach you Spanish?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Do I know a word? I literally know one word, but like that's about it.
Oh, you don't speak the language.
No, I don't speak the language. They tried teaching me Spanish and French because, you know, the French took over the Louisiana Purchase or whatever history. I know. But then we moved here. I moved here at the age of 8 years old, and I thought, oh my God, the Holy Land, you know, I literally thought I was gonna like see prophets and some stuff, you know. I thought it was like that holy. And then
Some people do. Jerusalem syndrome.
You want to know what it is? Is that all my teachers in school where I studied here, they all were like, you know what brought us here? And we're like, well, we don't really care about what. And they say, Jesus brought me here. I'm like, that's great. That's great. My parents forced me here, so can't relate.
I mean, I have to say, when I was a kid walking into the church in Nazareth, I also would be like, am I going to discover some secret alleyway to, like, you know, hidden door that will find where Jesus used to hang out or something? Like, you have that, you know, can I find something important in the city that is so important to what I'm from? Like, you get that.
I never saw it.
I always thought I was the chosen one. Well, chosen for what? I don't know, but I was the chosen one somehow. You know, I had a
Harry
very
Potter.
main character energy growing up.
Wait, are you also a Leo?
No, I'm a Sagittarius. To all my Sagittariuses out there, one love. You know, we're great.
All right, hold on.
As you can see, it's Gen Z vibe in here. You have
Gen Z
two of
vibe.
us here versus Ibrahim.
No, I need to set the tone a little bit because we can chat here forever. But I'm going to bring back the conversation to the little Palestinian child or the Louisiana girl who came in at the age of 8
Yeah.
and getting this cultural shock of,
It was.
thinking this is going to be, I don't know, holy spiritual place. And then you find what?
And then I found out it is the exact opposite of holy. It is the exact opposite of peaceful. It is everything what you expect Jerusalem to be. Turn it over. It's not. And I came to that realization through my mom. Now, a bit of a backstory. My mother is from the occupied territories of the West Bank. She's originally from Nablus, but lived her whole life in Ramallah. And anyone who knows the political situation here is that people from the West Bank don't have a blue ID, they have a green ID, you know?
Blue ID meaning?
Blue ID meaning they are permanent residents in Israel. Green ID is that they are from the West Bank. They are from Area A. And that is where my mother is from. And so when we first came back here, we didn't really know the rules and regulations of the wall, checkpoints, borders, all of that bullshit that was going on here. You know, we've been in the States for 8 years. What are we supposed to know? So my mom was like, you know what? I want to go visit my family in the West Bank. I want to see them. I haven't seen them in so long. And on our way back, of course, we had to go back to Jerusalem. We noticed that at Columbia checkpoint, they're stopping cars. So we didn't think too much of it. We didn't think something was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, my mom takes out her green ID, and a soldier looks at her green ID, and he's talking to her in Hebrew. Keep in mind, she didn't know a word of Hebrew back then. And he goes like, your papers in Hebrew. And my mom is so confused. She's like, what papers? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And the soldier came to her side of the door, holding his gun, opening her car door and telling her to get out of the car. I was 8 years old. My older sister was 9, and my little sister was only 4. And to see that, a soldier holding your mom at gunpoint, basically, and telling her to get out of the car, was one of the most petrifying things I have ever seen in my life. And I remembered we were all screaming and saying, no, don't take our mom, not mama. Where are you going with our mom? And surprisingly, she stood tall and proud. Not a fear in her eyes. Nothing. She just walked with them. And my dad was like, we need to go to an area where they were interrogating her. I don't really remember. And we waited 8 hours for her. And I remember my dad looking at me and saying, I don't know if your mom is going to come back with us. And 8 hours later, she walked out, and it was as if she had seen a ghost. And at that moment, I didn't want to be a Palestinian, because I knew that my identity was a threat. So that was kind of my realization of what it meant to be a Palestinian for the first time coming here.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of like the listeners. And I'm going to ask you what might be obvious questions to you, which maybe not at the time, but like now. Why couldn't she just go through her American passport?
My mom doesn't have an American passport. She has a Palestinian passport. None of my parents are American. My father has an Israeli passport, and my mother has an Palestinian passport.
Are you comfortable sharing what their status was in the States?
They were under visas.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
They were under visas.
Where's your father from? He's from Israel. He's from Jerusalem?
My father's from Jerusalem, yeah.
Oh.
He's an original
Jerusalemite.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow, that's intense.
An intense story.
We're like a salad bowl at home. You know, me and my little sister, we're both Americans. My dad and my little brother are Israeli. And then my older sister, she has no citizenship. She has a laissez-passer.
Wow.
So wait, what the Israeli citizenship came from where?
My dad applied.
Okay.
My dad applied. And he got it eventually.
And then your brother got it from him after that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my brother, he's young. He's like 10 years old.
Oh, so he did it as his kid. He didn't apply separately.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so wait, does this amplify your Palestinian identity? Did it reduce it? Did you want to just be American at that point?
I mean, there were a lot of moments where I just wanted to be American. And then it wasn't until I interacted with the other side the first time at 16 years old and joining a peace program, an organization called Tomorrow's Women, where I was like, I really do take pride in my Palestinian identity. I think that was my first time. And yeah, it was during around 2015, 2016. You know, I've had somewhat interactions with them before, but that was only through a checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But, and it was soldiers. And my dad obviously had a lot of, you know, Israeli friends when he used to work in Abu Ghosh.
Mm-hmm.
But I never interacted with them, but they were so kind to him and everything. So I was always like, what's going on? Like I saw this, but then I also see this. What's the situation? I was always confused of, do they hate us? Do they like us? Are we their enemies? Are we not their enemies? What's going on? But all I knew is that every time I crossed a checkpoint, I feared for my mom.
It brings you're bringing me back to childhood, kind of. I have to be honest. It's like, you know, growing up, I don't know, watching things in Hebrew and like having kids who are Jewish who were friends of mine at the time, who were my cousins' neighbors, and you're like, okay, I see these nice people. And then the second Intifada comes around when I was between age 8 and 11. She's like, wait, but I have Jewish friends. But why do these people hate us? And what? So who does hate me? Who doesn't? And I remember one time also asking my mom the question that you know, that frustration. I remember asking her, why are we born Arab? And if we're Arabs, why here of all places? Like, why be in a place where I'm hated for who I am?
Yeah.
You know, that question that people don't get, that we have this frustration because you feel like you're being cursed by your identity.
Yeah.
And what happened to your mom? Like, there's the... We'll leave it in the episode description, but like there's the like I assume she had to apply for the reunification, the family reunification thing.
So after they, finally let her go and everything, and they told my father, they were like, she needs to have a permit to live in Jerusalem with her family. She needs to go to the Ministry of Interior and get that. And so every year, for the next 17 years, she would have to go renew it, and if she doesn't, and she goes to the West Bank and she comes back and they see that it's not renewed, it's old or whatever, you go live in the West Bank. You're not allowed to cross. Just recently, alhamdulillah, they gave her a temporary blue ID after 18 years.
Wow.
Now, but it's interesting how, what strengthened your own identity and Palestinian identity was when you participated in a program for women.
Yeah.
And that actually brings me to the second term that you've brought in, feminist. And I see how those two things also connect together beautifully.
Yeah.
Of how discovering, I would love to hear from you. How that connection came about between your role as a woman in this society and the challenges that women in our society face, which actually might hinder, somebody might hear from the outside. So wait, your identity as a Palestinian has been threatened and that puts you away from it. But in a society that pushes you away all the time, it did quite the opposite. It even emphasized it and strengthened it as that you want to change.
Yeah.
So do you want to share with us what happened in that program and why use the term feminist now?
So,
tell me. I know you want to tell me. Tell me.
Okay. Ibrahim, I'm going to telepathically right now hold your finger when I say
Me
this.
telepathically feeling the fingers holding. Yeah.
The reason why Tomorrow's Woman was such a good camp is because there was no men in it. I'm telepathically letting go, absorb it, take it in. It's fine.
I'm not surprised.
Okay. It's great.
I'm on your side. But
You're a feminist too? Okay, so we're not going to have a problem. I'm so excited.
I was raised by a very feminist mother.
That's
who puts
great.
very, very strong, Amira knows, very specific values that I don't...
I mean, all our listeners know.
And all our listeners know. I
it
talk about it
times.
1,000 times.
That's good. So... basically, Tomorrow's Woman is an organization that takes 8 Palestinians from around Palestine and 8 Israeli women from around Israel, and they get together and they take them all the way to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where they spend 3 weeks together doing dialogue, artwork, basically very intense work. Now, what I don't like is when people hear peace program, they think that we're around a circle in a campfire singing Kumbaya. Sorry, no, we're not a cult. Listen, it's a lot more serious than that, and it's a lot deeper. The first week and a half, of course, we're at the airport. I remember I was 16 years old, and my best friend at school, she came up to me. She's like, "Listen, my mom is making me go to a peace camp, and I'm not a PC person, but apparently you are." She's like, "Come with me. Don't make me go alone." And I was like, "Listen, I haven't been to the States in 8 years. I'd kill for a trip to Walmart. Let's do this. Let's go. Target, waiting. I'm ready. Can't wait to give myself a Krispy Kreme donut. I don't know.
It's a lot. It happens a lot. Not the Target and the Walmart, but that there's always an alternative. There's always an alternative motive for people to, specifically Palestinians. Like it's usually, I want a taste of like the good life. I want I want to get a shul.
Give me a flight.
But sometimes it's even more simpler than that. The first program that I got into, like I dealt with Palestinians that never saw the sea. They just wanted to see sand, and that's why they enrolled into the peace programs. They were like, I've never been to Jaffa. My family's from Jaffa. And that kind of is like the first domino effect for Palestinians to get into these programs. Whether or not they stay is a different question, but usually it's something like that. And I don't think it's wrong. It's just that, and I think like a lot of I'm not talking about Tomorrow's Women, but like a lot of the times there's this kind of resentment between the organizers or the Israelis, because like, what are you giving the Israeli? They know how they can fly, they can like, maybe for some that are like financially disadvantaged, it's an opportunity to learn English or something like that. But when it comes to freedom of movement or access to opportunities, it is a big reason for why Palestinians enroll into these kinds of programs.
Oh yeah, the first thing they say is, I finally get to get out of this country. Yeah. First thing, even Arab Israelis, like the 48 Arab Israelis that live in Haifa or Akka or in the north, like they travel.
Ibrahim hates that term.
Oh
no,
I don't know what's the right term to use, Ibrahim. I don't want to offend anyone.
No, you're not actually, but it just gives us a time to reflect on it for a second. Just because it's a term that, you know, Arab Israeli is a very much an Israeli term. That's like
Really?
the problem of it. It's like it's to Israelite us.
So let's switch the roles. How would you identify yourself?
I think the term that describes every person from our community are all Arab citizens of Israel. The vast majority of us are Palestinian citizens of Israel, because we're also part of the Palestinian people, with a minority that is not connected, but the vast majority is. And then there's like the very small minority that see themselves as Arab Israeli, but I see them as a very tiny minority. So I don't, like, the term doesn't reflect to me who we really are. Like at the bare minimum, I expect of people is Arab citizens, because we're Arabs and we're citizens. But for the majority of us, we want to be reflected on who we actually are. We're Palestinians. We're not just Arabs.
Yeah.
So I always say I'm Palestinian, and like I'm part of the Palestinian people and living as an Israeli citizen and in the Israeli society. It doesn't have to be either or, but that's the case. Yeah.
For our listeners or anyone like tuning in or listening to this conversation, like they might be like, how do they not know this? How does like I'm sure there's a lot of things that Lana's going to say that are going to be fascinating for
somebody from Jerusalem and someone from the north.
We don't have this dialogue. Like this is I don't want to say rare, but it doesn't happen as often as you'd think. Like we are too much into our own bubbles, too much into our own kind or type of oppression, that we don't really have this dialogue of, oh, then what, I only read about you in the news because I physically can't get there, or I don't like need to get there or talk to you unless like if this happens, a podcast recording happens, or a family member gets married into the north, or vice versa, or you study, and then this kind of dialogue happens.
But I will be honest, what you just said, Ibrahim, that's the first time I hear that as a Jerusalemite. Like I usually hear people from the north always say like, احنا العرب 48, like us 48ers, and
they're afraid to say the word Palestinian. Like when they're saying they're 48ers, they are connecting themselves to like, the Palestinian people without saying the word Palestinian.
But it's like, like I never expected, and this is because of my own ignorance that I didn't talk about it enough, and I will take full accountability to that. It's my own ignorance for not asking, for not putting myself in the situation to say, I have a question, because I'm always too scared to offend someone, because everyone nowadays is offended by everything. But like, that's a situation. And I never really put myself in the position to say, do you guys take pride in your Palestinian identity, or do you feel more connected to the Israeli society? And I feel like if you ask that question, they'll be like, hold up, did you just make an assumption? And I'm like, no, I asked the question.
It is a problem of preventing a discourse from happening.
Yeah,
But let's get back a little bit to the feminist.
So in continuation to that, I met these girls during the interview process, and then we were in the airport with them, but I stayed with my friend and other Palestinian girls. Like I still wasn't ready to mix with the Israeli girls. I was like, I'm not there yet. And they were speaking in Hebrew, and I didn't understand a word of Hebrew then, like nothing. And so I remember that we get to the camp and everything. We're in the middle of the woods of Santa Fe, New Mexico. That was sketchy, but it is what it is. And we get to our assigned rooms, and, I'm sharing a room with only one other Palestinian and two or three other Israelis. And I'm literally mattress next to another Israeli, and never met her before in my life. She was sitting next to me on the plane the whole time, and I didn't speak a word to her. It was until we got there. And the first week and a half, I will be honest, of the camp, we build trust. We don't get into the conflict right away. We, through art, through games, through understanding our own identity. Each individual, what is your identity? And I remember they laid out pieces of paper on the floor, and they were like, choose whichever one you feel is close to you. And, I remember choosing feminist, and I remember choosing Palestinian, and I remember putting American, I think, as well during that time, And all these other girls, they would also have their identities, and some girls would be like, I'm Jewish. Some would say I'm Zionist. Some would say I'm Israeli. And I'd just be like, okay, didn't really think too much of it. And, they would explain their identity. And keep in mind, just for background purposes, my parents never opened up the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at home. They never really talked about it. At school, we never really spoke about it.
Which is something very common for Jerusalemites, because same thing.
We just
same
knew.
for my house. Yeah, like people don't understand that it's not necessarily everybody talks about politics from day one. I get that question from Jewish kids all the time. How much did they tell you to hate us? I'm like, guys, they didn't tell me about you enough at all.
Literally, like I was raised like respect everyone. If they respect you, you respect them. If they disrespect you, just walk away. No need to sing to their level. That's just like what I was raised about. I never looked at race, sex, ethnicity, sexuality. It never was really something that was spoken about at home. We just genuinely didn't care. It's like each to their own. And so they were all describing. And so for the first week and a half, we were talking about life, food, culture, singing songs. It was a little bit kumbaya at the time. And why men don't deserve the time of day. Sorry, Ibrahim. All that good stuff. And then after a week and a half, it was time to address the elephant in the room. It was time to talk about the thing we dreaded to speak about, because we were like, oh, I just created such a close bond with this girl and with this girl. Is she going to hate me now? Is there going to be tension? The answer is yes. There's going to be tension. There was screaming. There was cursing. There was heated conversations. And automatically I noticed, and I said, you are not the same person right now in front of me that I remembered a week ago. You're not. Like, I understand why we don't like each other now. And it was like, oof. And it was constant back and forth. You Palestinians, you Israelis, you this, you that, you did this, you did that. Well, my grandmother and my grandfather. Just constant bickering in one dialogue session that lasted 3 hours. One girl got so mad, she said, fuck this, and got up and got out. And that was the same girl that was sleeping next to me. And I was like, you literally braided my hair last night. How dare you? Like, I was like so shocked. Like, it was literally that type of situation of, ouch. Like, did you really just say fuck me? Like, sorry for my profanities. Sorry to the audience. But like, really? Like, are you serious? Like, I literally cried to you the other day about something personal, or we literally made breakfast together, or I helped you remove lice out of your hair, and I really did, like this was kind of painful. And then after that dialogue ended, I took so much pride in being Palestinian, because like, you don't understand the suffering I go through, and count your lucky stars that you won't ever have to. And I think what was also painful is that, but in a way was kind of true, is that we were comparing pain. You know, it was, but I feel this, but I feel that. And it wasn't until after a while where we realized that you can hold both narratives in the same place and feel empathy for each other. And keep in mind, we spent a couple of days not speaking to each other. It was very intense, you know, and even our dialogue facilitators would tell us, like, you guys need a break, like, you guys need to breathe. And we would exit the dialogue room and we were not allowed to speak about what was spoken in the dialogue room. It was forbidden. You walk out of this dialogue room, you don't talk about it. Forget it. It never happened.
And is this the point where, like, the similarity of, like, a woman's experience or a female's experience?
Yeah, so I was like telling them, like, us Palestinian women, we struggle enough in our community to have our voices out, to speak, to proudly be the women we are. We struggle sometimes, and we can't deny that. We can't deny it. In Arab society, sometimes it's hard. It's even harder being a woman, but to top that off, occupation too. Like, really, it's like double the frustration, double the annoyingness, all of it. It's awful. And it's like this organization made me feel so embedded so much in me that it is so important to take pride in being a woman and sharing my voice and saying I have something to say, especially when we're in a world that is ruled by misogynistic, bigoted, ignorant men. And not only that, but also in the sense of, like, we don't get that much recognition the way we should. We really don't. And our voices are so strong and are so powerful. And then you have just some dude coming up and, like, covering that and taking the spotlight. And you're just like, why? Like, and half the stuff that comes out of their mouth just doesn't make sense. And I'm talking about men in power.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a majority of what comes out of their mouth doesn't make sense.
Men tend to bullshit in confidence. I think that's like the biggest issue.
And that's
that
why
I've
they
seen
get all
with
the
men in
coverage.
conversations like that, even especially around like political and stuff like that. Like, so a guy can bullshit, and he like speaks so much in confidence as if he knows what he's talking about, but everything's coming out is crap. A woman who would know 30, 50 times more would be much more hesitant on, I want to speak up when I know exactly that I'm, I know everything exactly right, because I don't want to bullshit and I want to be as professional as possible. But then the guy speaks 20 times more because he just speaks with that bullshit confidence. So it helps him to sound more, has more to say when it's like, there's no substance.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's an issue. Yeah, I agree. I see it.
It is.
But my question here, was that experience being with other women, seeing how women deal with this confliction alone?
Yeah.
Was that the empowering part, or as Palestinian women, or as both women?
Yeah,
or both?
Like, no. I will say, us women together, both Palestinian and Israelis, when we were in that camp, we really did empower each other. Put aside the dialogue that was very intense and heavy. In general, we really did empower each other and give each other confidence and allowed the other one to express freely and just, feel whatever they wanted to feel. We empowered each other so much. Now, when it came to Palestinian women alone, I remember there were nights where we'd sit down and we'd say, we would talk about how important it is for us to speak about our truth and our suffering, even if it might make the other side uncomfortable, might make the Israeli girls feel uncomfortable. We said, it is time for us to make them comfortable in the uncomfortable. It is time for that to happen, because we can't just keep sitting there and bullshitting our way or sugarcoating our way because we want to preserve each other's feelings. No, us as Palestinian women, I remember the day we spoke about politics. I'll never forget. We all came into the dialogue room, each one of us, the Palestinian girls, wearing a kufiye. We walked in wearing a kufiye, proudly, heads held high. And one of the Israeli girls said, "What, is that to threaten us?" And we said, "No, this is a part of our identity. This is who we are."
That's it's a big part of like the just the not just misunderstanding, but also miseducation that happens, especially in regards to the kufiyya, the traditional clothes, the flag, even Arabic sometimes. I know you chose your third word as activist. I think because we dived very deeply into the first two, and the second part is all about what you do. So how about we just talk about the activist in the second part to give it the time that it deserves?
Yeah.
Great.
For sure.
So also for our listeners, I think we can link a lot about the things that we talked about the status of Jerusalem, the unification law, about reunifying families between whether it's 48 Palestinians with Israeli citizenship or Jerusalemite blue ID and green ID. Gaza, it's an entire different story, but we'll link it in the description as well. Other than that, I think we can go to the next segment.
We would like to take a moment and to thank our Patreon community. Without your support, UTTN would not be able to shed light on the things we are presenting and the activism on the ground. Your support means the world to us. So if you're not a subscriber, join us on patreon.com/thirdnarrative and you'll be able to access some exclusive content that we will have there, as well as monthly Zoom sessions with us. So join now and be part of the community.
Moving to our next segment, which is What Do You Do? The segment where we ask our guests, you, Lena, today, what does your activism comprise of? Because also for you, one of the three elements of your identity that you chose was actually activist. So I know, at least for me, I've noticed that when someone says they're an activist, it's something that like the activism chose them, not that they were like sitting one day thinking, what do I want to do with my life? I'd like to be an activist. It never happens that way. It's usually you stumble into it. So in this segment, we'd love for you to start to tell us, what do you do?
So currently today, I work as a co-educational director in a program called Kids for Peace. That brings together children from all different religions, whether they're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, and they just come together and they break these stereotypes that they might have about each other. And it's such a beautiful organization because it's crucial that from a very young age, you understand that person in front of you, whatever stereotype, whatever thought you have about them, may not be true if you just sit down and have a normal conversation with them. So that's what I currently do. But my activism started when I was 16, when I realized that I really wanted to get into humanitarian work and I wanted to make a difference in the world. Because I would sit down and I'd just be like, oh, there are so many things that just I don't feel like are impactful in our day-to-day world.
That are not?
No, it's like, it's not the type of change that you want to see. Like when it comes to like world hunger or, living under occupation, living under apartheid, not having basic human rights. It frustrated me at such a young age. And that's when I went into Tomorrow's Women and I understood my identity as a Palestinian, as a woman, and the importance of empowering your voice as a woman, especially within the Arab society. And moving on, I continued with that. And I carried it very, very strongly with me. I started noticing the little things of like stopping your car and checking the trunk, or when I would go to the old city and I would see young boys my age at the time being stopped and pulled to the side and humiliated in front of everyone, being checked from head to toe and being asked for the IDs, hearing some of these kids getting beaten up, all just because they were Palestinian and they weren't doing anything. And the things that I wouldn't notice became so clear. It was as if this fog just lifted from my eyes. And
so what did that make you do? What did you start doing?
I was like, I want to talk about this.
Okay.
I don't want to be silent about this anymore. I don't want to sit on the sidelines. I want to do something about it. And in 2019, I continued with Tomorrow's Women as a not a facilitator. It was like considered like a grade leader over the younger girls.
Okay.
And then moving forward, I obviously I became more vocal about Palestine. I became vocal through social media. I talked about it. I shared about it. And obviously my parents weren't a fan. Like, they were not into it. They were like, stop, please stop. You don't know what type of threat or
Backlash
that might happen to you. Please stop. And I was like, no, don't tell me to stop. I'm not going to stop. I looked at my mom. I was like, and out of all people, you're saying that? You were humiliated in front of your own daughter 8 years ago. How could you tell me to stop? Or I'd look at my dad and be like, and your family was kicked out of their homes during 48. Why, how? Because you're scared? I'm like, this fear is the reason why they do the things they do to us. This fear that we've embedded within ourselves and that we've convinced ourselves we can't do. This is why we are here. This is why we're in the place we're in today. Because you're scared. But imagine if all of us weren't. And so I continued. And I kept pushing myself. I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep talking about it. And then one day, once I graduated from university, so during university, I didn't really talk about it much because obviously in Israeli academic institutions, when you talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, whether it was during the May 2021 war, which was very political on campus during that time. And I would suffer a lot on the WhatsApp group chats watching Israelis say, all Palestinians deserve to die, or, oh, they're the settlers, or, oh, they shouldn't even. And you would have to hold yourself because you know that they're protected. They're not going to get kicked out of campus. But me, someone who's worked so hard to reach where I am today, I'm out. I'm out the second I open my mouth, the second I take a breath, the second I say the word Palestine. I'm out. And I decided I can't jeopardize my education. I really want to get this degree. I've worked really hard. I'm just gonna suppress. When I graduated university, I obviously had to find a job. I found a job as a journalist once I graduated university, and my first day as a journalist, the war began, October 7th.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's a nonprofit organization, and I was an intern, and it was probably the most traumatizing period of my life. But it was that moment where I was like, I am going to become an activist and I am going to do something that brings my voice as a Palestinian out. My boss at the time was very, 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 and to put it into very nice terms, she was racist. She was racist as hell. This woman, I swear to God, like, no joke. One time she told me, there's a difference between Arabs and there's a difference between Jews. Jews, there's secular, there's Haredi, there's this, there's that. She's giving the type of Jewish sectors that there are. And she was like, now with Arabs, you obviously have different sectors as well. I'm like, yeah, for sure. She's like, you have Al-Qaeda, Fatah, Hamas. I'm like, man.
Oh, wow.
Apparently in her eyes, we don't. I remember one time I was struggling to get an interview with someone. And she was like, do you think they don't want to give it to you because they notice your accent is an Arab? And I'm just like.
Wait, in Hebrew?
No, I wasn't even speaking in Hebrew. I spoke in English, I remember. And she was like, do you think they don't want to do the interview and they're not giving you this minister because you're Arab? Maybe that might be the reason. I'm like, I spoke in English and I have a very American accent. I don't think they assumed I was Arab. And even if they did, why would you say that? And I remember at the time, I was 5 months into this job.
What were you covering? What kind of journalism?
So I really wanted to cover about the situations that were happening in Gaza. And she's like, no, let's not focus on that right now. Let's focus what's on the Israelis who are suffering and living in hotels at the moment. And I'm like, but you have Gazans. I was like, listen, it's terrible that they've evacuated their homes in the north and south. I'm not going to diminish their whatever they're going through, okay? But you have Gazans living in tents right now. You have Gazans who don't have homes. Don't you think that should be a priority right now? She's like, no, I think you should cover this. And I would hold my breath. I'm telling you, 5 months, I was losing hair, I was losing weight, and I was depressed. And the opportunity she did give me to talk to Gazans, I spoke to Gazan journalists. And it was painful because you would hear the Zannane up in the air. And I had a journalist who told
Just like
me,
the sound of the UAVs that
yeah.
are circulating over in the skies of Gaza, just for our audience.
And you would hear some of the journalists, like they were struggling, and when I would be on the phone with them, it would cut off. I had one journalist, she texted me, she was like, "Hey, I'm still alive if you still want to do the interview this following day." And that wasn't easy, I think. And then she would tell me to transcribe things that Ghazans were saying to news reporters at the time. And you'd hear them cry and say, well, my husband died and I'm pregnant and there's no like hospitals available that will take me in, and I'm separated from my family. And I studied journalism, and I was like, I studied to be a journalist for this, and I couldn't even do it. And I felt so bad. I don't mean to get emotional, and I'm not apologetic about it, but my dad told me, "Baba, journalism is مهنة المتاعب. It's for those who are most exhausted, because they're always going to have to, mentally and emotionally drain themselves like that to hear, to spread the truth." And I told him, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it with a racist boss, and I can't do it because every time I feel like I need to share their voice, I can't handle it. Like, I'm very sensitive. I'm very, very, very sensitive, and I'm very emotional. And it's not easy. It's not easy. When you see Ghazan journalists being killed and everything, you can't just imagine. If I couldn't handle it from my home or from an office. And so one day I got the opportunity to go speak abroad with Tomorrow's Women, and my boss told me, "Listen, you're in an internship right now. You cannot," I'll never forget, she said this. She's like, "You cannot be a peace activist and a journalist at the same time. You bleed lines." And I said, "Is that a fact or an opinion?" And she said, "It's a fact." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" Because I truly believe that's an opinion. I told her, being an activist is a big part of my identity. And and just because I'm an activist doesn't mean it will interfere with my work if it needs, because being a journalist is being objective. You need to speak the truth, But obviously all news agencies have their own agenda, and
they speak opinions.
They
all
speak
the time.
opinions all the time, but
there are no journalists now.
There are no
They're all
journalists.
analysts.
They're all analyzing. They're all saying what they believe is right. Everyone's twisting their words. You never know what's true, but
And part of journalism has activism built into it, going into, I don't know,
I think citizen journalism is more activism.
But like a journalist who picks themselves and go to Afghanistan to record what's happening, and to the situation of the women of Afghanistan, like that has activism into it.
I get it, but what agenda? That's the question. Like, if for her, for example, like, I'm sure she cares about all of the stories, but she wants where she wants her activism to lie. And you correct me if I'm not wrong. I don't want to speak for you. Is to talk about like the atrocities happening in Gaza.
But that's exactly.
But she couldn't be that under the umbrella that she was in.
No, I agree. Like, the outlet is the problem, not that you as a journalist can or cannot be. Like, I'm just talking about what this boss said, in the sense of like 100%. You can't, like, but I'm directing my energy of journalism. I can talk about everything around the world. Why am I like you said, why am I focusing on this? Because it's what I care about, and this is what I want to showcase to the world, that they need to see this. It's activism. Like, yeah, and it's just because it's what you're saying, and because of this side. If you were talking about the Israeli side, she would not call it activism. That's just what it is.
It was awful. It was the worst period of my life. And then afterwards, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I decided to look for a job that falls under my values as a Palestinian, my values as a woman, my values as a human who cares about humanity. And that is when I joined Standing Together, and I worked with them, and I felt like during that time I could breathe. It was a lot easier to express things that were bothering me, to talk about it because it was very much of an open space. You know, you can't say what you feel. There's so much legitimacy in expressing how you feel about the situation that was happening at the time, and that's still going on till today. And there was never this feeling of like tension. If, let's say, bombings that would kill 200 people in Gaza, and the next day we'd come into work, everyone was down. Everyone. It felt heavy. And it didn't feel like there was a heaviness only on one side. No, both sides, like Israelis and Palestinians within that movement, both of them felt something heavy in the air, and we felt it and we embraced it and we talked about it.
Inshallah, fingers crossed, we're going to have someone from the leadership of Standing Together probably join us. And I do think they do a pretty good job. And when you do, people are going to hate on you, and people, like you said, find reasons to hate on you for whatever.
Exactly.
And that space is like almost virtually doesn't exist for Palestinian citizens of Israel. It almost doesn't exist when you're at a workspace with Israelis. It's a very rare thing.
I mean, it has to be a political space.
You know, funny enough,
even in non-political, like I'm saying, in general terms, you don't have the space as somebody who works in, I don't know, in a pharmacy or in a...
Unless you're independent.
Unless you're independent, yeah. If you're working in an office, if you're a Palestinian in Israel, you feel like you cannot talk about what happened the day before if it was talking about something happening in Gaza. Everybody around you in the office, if it's a majority Jewish, will talk about something happening in Israel. And if you say something about Gaza, everybody's against you. Why do you mean this? You're treated immediately as suspect, as you're saying this to delegitimize them. So you shut up and you're not expressing your pain, your feeling. And the majority of our community feels that restraint. So having that space...
Specifically after the experience with the journalism internship.
And that Standing Together at least has that space. It's important. It doesn't exist in so many other spaces.
It is important. And that was what was so great about it. And even enough,
even in peace organizations, I have to say, Amira, also.
Of course.
No, I'm saying like not just in regular works, even in the peace community, not every organization will give you that space to express this feeling.
Sure.
I mean, it's the reason why this podcast exists in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
For sure. Like let's be honest here. I'm gonna be very general when I say this, but a lot of peace organizations, each one has their own agenda, and there are certain words they don't like to say, even though they know that it's important to say that word, and we all know what words we're talking about. And for the listeners. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it here.
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Like, for example, some organizations say we don't like to say the word genocide because it's very triggering. Okay, but let's trigger these people because that's what it is. Or, I'm sorry, when they say, oh, the war, it's not, at this point, it's no longer a war. Come on with everything going on. And so even in peace organizations, you feel limited. I'm sorry, but that's the case. That's how it is in every peace organization. Each one has their own agenda of what they want to follow, what they want to say, what they want to do. I get that. But I still believe that they're very crucial and very important because at the end of the day, they are doing something that matters.
Exactly.
But I got into Standing Together basically, and I felt like I could be more expressive. And believe it or not, during that time, we had about maybe 50 workers. I was the only worker that didn't have Israeli citizenship. I was like an East Jerusalemite, but like no Israeli citizenship, just an American citizenship, and I couldn't go to the protests. And they very much protected me from that. Not because they didn't want me to be there. They would have loved for me to be there, but they knew that, God forbid, if anything were to happen, I don't have rights like a basic Israeli. They might not keep me for a night and then say go home. What if I stay for months? So that's really what got me into activism. And then eventually I found myself speaking with Itai Flesher, who is a very, very great man. And he asked... Shout out to Itai.
We had an episode with him in the first season when he had his podcast called From the Yara River to the
I was on that
Mediterranean.
podcast. Yeah.
And we did a collab between us and them. So if anybody from our audience wants to check it out, to go back to season 1.
I think season 1, episode 5, where I am. So if anyone wants to see them too, just saying, give myself a shout out. But yeah, that's he told me, let's work together, let's collab together. I'm looking for a new educational director, and I was like, let's do it. And that's where I am today. My activism is helping the younger generation.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's helping the younger generation in different in different hats.
Yeah.
So we have Kids for Peace.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, there's Tomorrow's Women that you're still about.
There's also Tomorrow's Women. I'm an alum. I also did collab, and I do work with Solutions Not Sides, SNS. I also love that organization so much because they do communicate with the younger generation as well. And I obsess over organizations that connect with the youth. And obviously, like, anything that Standing Together does, if they needed me, like, just to, like, be there, I will be there. I very much love and support the work that they do. And they're just, like, I love the way they trigger the extremists, you know?
It's like somebody's got to press buttons.
Oh, yeah, they press buttons, and they do it in all the right places, and I love it. I love it.
But yeah,
which is what we're doing with this season.
Yeah.
A lot.
And you know, like the biggest pitfall, I think it's something that you were alluding to, is like that we're not just talking about, you know, that my peace organization does this and yours does that. It's like, we're doing this, you're not doing it, you're not good enough, you're not focusing on what's important, I am, you're not a good play organization, this is a good organization. Like, it becomes judgment up to the point of alienation, or I don't want to work with this organization, I don't want to work, or I don't want to uplift them even, because...
Which is a shame, because you're all fighting for the same fucking thing.
And
like,
not everybody needs to do the same thing, guys.
You don't have to do
but
Standing together can press.
I know.
Somebody else can do something, like, and it all goes to the same goal from different lenses.
I understand, but just to be like realistic, to go back to like the capitalistic world that we live in, even though they because they have the same goal, they also have the same source of funding.
Yes.
And they have to compete to get the money. And the donors need to decide what is, one, more effective, two, what is like radical enough-ish, and what's like approved by the other, like by my community. What do I want to put my stamp on? And that's when competition rises. It's like, yeah, we love each other, we this, we that, but at the end of the day, we're competing for the same dollar, for the same euro. Sometimes people look, I don't want to say look down, but underestimate the effect of working with kids, underestimate the effect of dialogue, and like in the midst of genocide, in the midst of war, in the midst of atrocities, do we really want to just talk to each other? Is that what's important? So I also understand why people just say, those people, they just talk to each other, they just take them to the States, or they just da-da-da. And then because they see that like the work on the ground needs to be protesting, needs to be political, needs to be in the West Bank, needs to be this, needs to be that. So I get, like, I really think that like it should be one of like the rules of activism, whatever word you want to put in front of it, nonviolent, peaceful, radical, anti-occupation. Activism needs to be that you don't put other people down. You focus on building up, you focus on the actual issues and the needs of the people. But if you are actually focused and devoted on putting an organization down, then it's harmful. And then I catch myself thinking, I know a few organizations that do so much harm in the name of activism, in the name of peace, in the name of uniting people in both sides and whatever. It also, like, it's supposed to be like so humanizing. At the same time, it's also dehumanizing. Like all organizations, I would say even ourselves. I'll just give like an example. While we were like talking about who's going to come on the podcast, we were like, okay, we want 48ers, we want West Bankers, we want Jerusalemites, and then we were going to bring you, and then we were like, but she has American citizenship. Does this count? Does this not count?
Yes, it does.
But I know it does. And we shouldn't be thinking about that, but we're thinking about the people watching and what they think about what is enough of whatever. What is enough? Even if it's like an Israeli, like, oh, they have American citizenship, then why
that reflect
is that
Israelis
exactly
enough or not?
Exactly. So we're like, we hate it so much, but we're also like we're guilty of it
Or
as
even
well.
activism, like, we had our discussion about one of the organizations or movements that it's completely social, no politics involved. And Amira raises the question, rightly so. Should we focus on something that doesn't touch anything political
But
whatsoever?
everything is political.
It's kind of with that statement in mind, everything is political.
Everything.
Why do we bring an organization that doesn't? But that's an argument. That's a discussion to have. But still, in the same time, some work of the activism that gets to the end goal can be solely from social, and somebody else does completely political, and some does a merge of the two, and some. But then
I
it's
feel like you
still a
can't avoid
question.
politics. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I also
You
feel like
can
it's a
never.
cop-out.
No,
I
not that I
agree with you.
disagree, but some people do want to use that approach because they don't want to get, or like one issue that we have particularly is Palestinian citizens of Israel. You get into politics, you lose people. Oh, it's a very specific niche of political view, then some people will be put out from it, especially if we're talking about social work, where it's going to touch the whole society. Oh, but you want to work with the whole society? Yeah, but your agenda comes from a party that is designated 1, 2, 3, so I don't want to have anything to do with it, even though you're bringing service to the entire society.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a problem or hindrance. So that's why some people look to avoid it. But then it raises, like, these questions come up because of that, and it's legitimate.
It's like you can never win.
No, you can't.
You can never win. And you know what? Rightfully so. I get it. You can never win.
When you're an oppressed minority, not even when you're like occupied, forget an oppressed minority because this isn't a normal situation, but like when you're occupied, when you're so like divide and conquer is on like steroids, it's on a different level. You start these kind of divisions are all a distraction onto the main point. They're legitimate, doesn't mean they're not legitimate, but they are also hold specifically in times like this that are so dark and bloody. They become a distraction, and we end up having this conversation that is also, like you said, you never win.
And I'm guilty of this. Is like if I open a discussion of politics with an Israeli, there's so many things that I want to say to them as a Palestinian, and I don't want to hurt them, but at the end of the day, I hold my tongue because it's like you look at them and you're like, you're never going to understand, You're never going to understand. You're never going to understand what I feel, how I feel, what I went through, what I've been through, what my family's been through. And even when you want to explain it to them, they're going to be like, or they're going to say, but yeah, but this, but that. And I'm just like, listen, I'm telling you my story. Like, I'm telling you what I've been through. Shut up and just listen.
Yeah,
Do not listen to retaliate. Listen to understand. That's where it starts. And they don't get that.
It's actually, we're going to jump into the next segment, which is needs, but you touched upon exactly what we asked our listeners.
Yeah.
We asked them that we want radical empathy and we want you to listen, because it's not going to be easy to hear this season as a whole. Each and every episode is going to be difficult in its own way. But the work that you do, which is with kids, whether it was what you did in the past or what you still do with SNS or with Tomorrow's Women or with Kids for Peace, is getting one step closer for people to actually get that talent, because it is a talent to listen. And I'm really, really excited, interested to know what you have to ask from our listeners in the next segment.
Okay, that was a perfect way to move into our last segment, which is how can we help? What are your needs? And we were asking that to every activist to understand how can we, as Ibrahim and Amira, how can we as the audience can help the activists on the ground, but also how can the people who are working with you help? So you mentioned the dialogue, for instance. How can your partner across the aisle from the Israeli side, what do you need from them? But I'll start with another question, is what do you need from me? And here I'm asking as a Palestinian man. What do you need from the Palestinian male society? How can I, as Ibrahim, as someone who believes in equality, who wants to change this reality that we have, this patriarchal society that we live in, how can I help?
I would say for you as a man who's the literal minority within the minority, is to help educate these men of how important Palestinian women's voices are. And that sometimes It's okay to not turn off, but let's say tone down the logic and turn up the empathy. Turn up the emotion. Instead of thinking with your head, it's okay to open up your heart a little and understand how important empathy and emotion is in order to resolve things. It doesn't always have to be a Wall Street type of situation where it's just logic. Like, no, use your emotions. It's fine. It's okay. It doesn't make you less masculine. I promise. It makes you more masculine. It's hot. I promise. But like,
That's a good way. We need to change for the transition of what's attractive, not the douchebag type,
literally,
but the
it's
emotional type. That
the
that will make a
emotional.
change. I
Yeah.
had actually a conversation with my friend about it the other day. Is that women have the power to set the standards.
Oh yeah,
If
for
the
sure.
standards are high, the men's are gonna have to step up,
Exactly.
and if the standards are low, they're not gonna make an effort.
We're,
And there's power to that, but also but it doesn't like we're in a place that it's crazy that this has to happen, but also this is where we are. But like what you told me is that I agree that we need to stand up to other men. I think this is the biggest issue. I'll have one example, if that's okay, on that, because you reminded me of that. In Egypt, during the Egyptian revolution, when the women were part of the protests completely, they were integral parts. And then when the revolution ended and there were conversations over writing a new constitution, the women were pushed to the side. No one included them in the conversations over the constitution. And when they went to protest on Women's International Day, they were pushed out of Tahrir Square. And from the reports of the women who were there, including some of them who were my friends who told me about it, that they weren't pushed out by the Muslim Brotherhood that started to gain power. No. It was the same so-called educated men who were with them in the protests who pushed them away. And this is because you mentioned the word education, but I focused my research on that, and what I at least found is that the problem is that education is not enough. Like as in the term education, because people grasp it as, oh, I'm a doctor, so I'm educated.
Okay, and
But it doesn't mean that you hold values of equality while you're a
Exactly.
doctor or a lawyer or whatever you are.
Exactly.
It's a different kind of education. I think this is like a misinterpretation from our society of, I'm educated, that means no, it's not. It's a specific type of education. And the problem that we have is that we as men who want to change this, we need to stand up to those other men.
Exactly.
I don't think like
I find it as my role.
It's such a man thing to say, though. I don't think you need to stand up to other men. I think you need to lead by example. And we had this conversation before. If, for example, in that Tahrir Square, you had other men joining the protest with the women,
Exactly.
not necessarily pushing away the other men, just being there.
No, being
just
there.
being
That's
there.
the statement of, like, I'm not saying like I need to speak to them directly, but I need to no, this is wrong, and I'll show you why this is right. And I'm standing with the women of Egypt, and we are equal, and we need to be together at the table. And the fact that they're here, I'm also supportive of that, against those other men who also expect that all men think that way. Like, this is from the men's world. I would say this is why I found it important for me to tell them no, because in their mind, we're all supposed to think that way. And then you have another man who tells you no. We don't all think that way. I was raised different, and I believe different, and it should be different.
I think that's important, but I think it also, I know we're going towards a completely different direction, so I'm just going to say this and then we can move on.
Yeah.
But I think it also still centers the man, which is what the women want to not do.
Exactly.
So you need to not, like, if you can do something as a man, is not center yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to say,
Make
oh,
room
it's
for
the
us.
men that we need to change, it's the men that, no, you need to, like, the same way with activism. Like, right now, because of the power dynamic, it's the same thing with men and women. You need to decenter the oppressor. You can talk, and it's what we're doing here. We're talking about Palestinians, not necessarily talking about their oppression or their oppressor. We're talking about them and what they are doing. And it's the same thing with, like, feminism and, like, I don't like all these labels. I just stand for what I stand for. But I do think that we need to decenter men in this kind of conversation. It's not like, oh no, the men need to teach the men. No, we need to talk about the women, and we don't need to center the men all the time and make it about them all the time, because it's part of the problem.
I completely agree, and it wasn't in a way to do that, or at least from where I was coming. But it's important that you're saying it. But I do think there's like kind of like, for instance, if there's a documentary produced by a woman and directed by a woman with women actresses talking about women issues, and the general men won't watch it because they're saying, oh, they're talking about women. But when you stand against that and showing that this is also like what you said, it's cool, or this is what's hot, is to watch, to empathize, to be there. That no, this is not for them. This is for all of us. Men need to watch it. I need to watch it. You need to watch it. It's important. They're talking about a society.
It's just basically
just like I want to stand to them. Like that's like where I feel like you feel like you want to do something.
Basically, to keep it short, is that what I ask for Palestinian men is make room for women, make room for Palestinian women, because I promise you, our voices are a lot stronger than what you think. And our ability to balance both emotion and logic and to sympathize and to just, be there is something that I personally, and I will say this confidently, I don't think a man can do. Not the way we do it.
Which is what you asked for in the end of the previous segment, which is to listen, basically.
To listen, yeah.
To listen, to show empathy, and it's very important to have the space for women, because we see it too many times. And remember, I talked to you recently about it when I'm invited to speak at an event or like a kind of a conference, and then they ask me, we just are missing on women. And if Amira can come with you, for instance, because we need another space for women because it's unequal. I'm like, it's every time there's a conference, people tell me the exact same sentence. Why do we start off from the point of having majority men in the first place? There are so many incredible women to speak. Why did you have a majority men from the get-go? Why get to that place?
Because we're not
you're looking for women to increase the ratio. It bothers me so much.
It is an issue, yeah.
So if we can focus now on like what would you want from Palestinian citizens of Israel, but diaspora Palestinians, because you also have a foot in that world too.
So for Palestinian citizens of Israel, you have an advantage that East Jerusalemites don't have. You have citizenship. So please take advantage of that. Go out on the streets, speak of our struggle, scream it as much as you can. Don't give up. Speak about Gaza. Speak about the West Bank. Take advantage that if, God forbid, you were to be arrested or anything, you have rights as an Israeli citizen at the end of the day to get out of the position you are. Maybe not as simply as an Israeli Jew, but you do somewhat have that right. I, as an East Jerusalemite, it is a struggle because I can't hold a Palestinian flag. I can't wear the kufiya without being mortified of something happening to me on the street. And I can't speak up as much because it's just a threat to my life, to my well-being, to my family, to my mom. Palestinians in the diaspora, please do not stop speaking about Palestine, about our struggle, about the occupation, about the apartheid, about what we go through day and night and what we've been going through for so many years and what your grandparents have gone through. Do not stop. Also, remember, there is nothing wrong with having a conversation about the Palestinian and Israeli conflict with an Israeli. It does not make you a traitor. It does not make you a whitewasher. It makes you understand more in depth. Talk to Palestinians within Palestine. I promise you, the more you educate yourself about the situation here, the better you look when you speak about us. It is not just about waving a flag and screaming free, free Palestine. It is deeper than that. And Palestinians in the diaspora, Please tell your friends who are not Palestinian that our struggle and our occupation and the occupation that we are dealing with in the apartheid is not a trend. We are not a trend.
And now, one last question is that for the people who are listening to us right now, how can they help? How can our audience help?
Remember that it's a mixed bag.
We have audience from all over the world, from different ethnicities, different religions, different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
They're from the international community in general. How can they help?
What I ask for the international community is to do the same thing, is to not stop speaking about the injustice that is happening here, to recognize that basically we're not a number of people who are dying or that we're suffering or so forth. We're humans. You know, we want to go about our days too. We want to go to school. We want to have family gatherings. We deserve liberty. We deserve justice. We deserve sovereignty. We deserve a lot of things. So I think that in some of the international community, they forget to humanize us. And we're human. And please don't forget that. Look at how organizations within the country that are on the ground acting towards the discrimination in the occupation that is happening here. This is something that you should put your focus on. I'm sorry. You can educate yourself by understanding from the people here, because we are the stories that you see online. We are the voices. We are the people that you read about every single day. And we have a voice. We're expressing it. Listen to it and actually listen.
Thank you so much, Lana. We really appreciate you being here, the vulnerability, sharing your story, your activism. And thank you to everybody from our audience from listening in to this amazing episode. Please continue to follow up with us on our Patreon, on all our social media platforms, and stay with us for another episode of UTTN, the podcast.